that we are late by 5-6 minutes. So I will start the webinar, which is on a very serious topic of how to handle workplace bullying and lobbying, and because of which sometimes our professionals go into depression or some sad times, and sometimes some of them find it unable to cope up with the stress and tend to take some extreme steps like suicide, which is not the way out, which is definitely not a way out. Life is precious, and we should always respect what God has given to us to live this life on this earth, on this planet, and it is not dependent upon a bunch of people for our happiness, for our, well-being. So I will start with introduction of my company because we are having many new audience today. Welcome all the participants from India, from Philippines, from Nepal, and other parts of the world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will request all the participants, please mute your microphones so that experts, when they are speaking, they can, have a clear flow of voice. I am running a company called L'strategyq LLP, and the tagline is globalising education. My purpose is to look for some seamless education across the borders, because education does not have any religion, any region, any caste, or any color. It should be unified for all. So whenever, when some student or some guy who wants to work across the borders or goes for higher studies in some other country, education must be seamless. Science or maths, they do not change their laws across the borders. They remains the same. Earth is same, sun is same, the motion is same. This is our purpose, and we are having partnerships with some international clients, and we try to find them partners in India, in academic course exchange, in edtech companies, and so on. So our purpose of this webinar, at the onset of COVID-19, what we found that our students some of them are very unsure about these uncertain times, about jobs and placements. And so we started our webinars to make sure that they get to know what are the trends that are going to change or that are going to be there amidst COVID-19 or post-COVID-19. And fortunately, our international experts and Indian experts were able to motivate them and keep their spirit up. And many of them now, after 2 and 3 months, I'm finding are getting jobs and placements in very good companies. And today we are having our 2 experts here. We have Shereen Qutob from Dubai. Shereen, please, I apologize if I do not pronounce your name correctly. You may tell me if what is the correct one.
So you said it perfectly, spot on. Thank you, Dr.
Vaneeta. Thank you. I will tell you about Shereen. Shereen is a leadership development and clarity coach, starting her career as an architectural engineer back in the day, and then transitioning into media and communications, and finally finding her way to the world of talent management and corporate leadership development. Her mission is to bring humanity back to the workplace, one conversation at a time. Through an understanding of state of mind and clarity coaching, helping leaders across all levels unlock their fullest potential by tapping into the hidden keys behind clarity. When people think better, they feel better and they perform better. Welcome, Shereen, on our board today. And I will introduce. Thank you so much. And our other expert is Professor Tanmoy Chakraborty from Presidency University, Bengaluru, in India. It's a southern city of India. It is known for its very neat and clean environment and a very pleasant climate throughout the year. Dr. Tanmoy Chakraborty is presently serving as Deputy Registrar and Associate Professor, Department of Chemistry. He has more than 14 years of teaching and research experience in higher education institutes. He has served as several senior academic administrative positions like Deputy Registrar, Head of the Department of Chemistry, Faculty Coordinator of Manipal University, Jaipur, Teacher Empowerment Center at Manipal University, Jaipur. He has strong research acumen. As a computational chemist, he has published more than 39 research articles in peer-reviewed international journals, 7 books with renowned international public house. He is an institutional builder and quite versed with academic, regulatory, statutory compliances, accreditation, and ranking process of higher education institutes. Dr. Tanmoy has a strong leadership ability and people management quality. We welcome you, Professor Tanmoy, for being here on this panel. And for all our participants, there is a question and answer window, and there is also a chat window in which you can post your queries. We will have views of our panelists, and then we will open the question and answer session. You can post your queries on the chat or on the question and answer window. Thank you. So Shereen, shall we start with you?
Sure, let's fire away.
Thank you. Please enlighten our participants with your views on what you understand by bullying and lobbying at workplace and how to counter.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, I think, corporate realities that, we don't, as students, or, when we're still looking at the world with rose-tinted glasses as graduates, we don't perceive that this might be an area that we might come against or have to deal with. However, having been in the corporate world for, I don't know, gosh, like 15, 17 years now, it was one of those areas that I had to come to terms with, especially early on in my career. And I would say the challenge is us not understanding maybe human dynamics and just, different agendas, different, just human beings just by their nature. Anytime you put 2 people or more in a group, there's always going to be differing opinions, differing points of view, and it's not personal. So none of it is personal. And I think that has been the biggest takeaway for me, is that especially in the business world, there's always going to be different goals and objectives to be met. Now, as a newcomer to a corporate environment, it's really important to be aware and savvy of the dynamics. And it's just, it's good practice to just have self-awareness. And I would say, a really, really key piece as well is having a very strong sense of self. So it's very easy to get swayed by, other people and other opinions and other points of view if you don't have a strong foundation within yourself. However, if you've got that strong foundation and you're clear on your own values and what you stand for, then it's much easier to hold your ground per se and not necessarily get swayed by that. I would say just the point that people struggle with, I think, is because there is a clash of expectations. We walk in with an expectation of, an organization, maybe they've got a mission statement, and companies do that. They've got all, they say all the right things, they do that. But we forget that companies are made up of people, and people are inherently, by design, we're human and we're not perfect. And, the more I think we can just understand that everyone is trying their best in every given moment, and none of it is malicious or it's personal. There's no attack on people. So the more we can step back from that and just look at that there are multiple objectives at any point in time, there's going to be multiple points of view, and a strong sense of self is really key, I would say.
Thank you, Shereen, for your inputs. I'll switch over to Professor Tanmoy. Please
Hello.
switch on your, yeah.
Yeah. I have switched on already.
Yeah, please. You're busy.
Now, my point is it's slightly different. Actually, I would like to start in terms of that, what is the workplace bullying and lobbying. What I have seen during my entire career, that the persons are generally not aware about that what is the workplace bullying and what is workplace lobbying. During the joining of that organization, they have the certain different views. That is, when he or she will continue that the work, then he will get the idea. And thing is that there is a very clear-cut demarcation between the your work goal, your vision, mission of the mission or statement of the mission statement of the organization. But at the same time, the bullying and lobbying is thing generally we all are facing during our entire career. Problem is that we could not identify what is the demarcation between the normal harassment and what is the demarcation between the workplace bullying and lobbying. And that is the reason, if you see that some of the survey report from the last couple of years, then you will observe that it is not the problem for any developing country. It is across the globe, you will face the same kind of the problem. Somehow, some problem is very silent. Some of the cases problem are very in outburst manner. But thing is that we should know what is the limitation of what is the bar between the harassment and bullying and lobbying. And then our faculty, our faculty, in terms of the academics, I can say that faculty, or in terms of any corporate, where the staff should be aligned with the policy. And we must emphasize that the bullying and lobbying is not tolerable at all. And so every human has a right to come up with the different kind of the idea, but we have to be strong enough mentally. We have to be strong enough through our determination that we will not tolerate the bullying and lobbying at the workplace, and we will give our best. That output maybe 100% or less, but nobody has the right to bully us, or they can humiliate us in front of the others. This is the main problem, because we are regularly facing this problem, but we do not have the courage to take the matter in front of the others. So I think that it is the definitely responsibility of the individual as well as the organization. And definitely we have to come out with the strong determination and strong mindset. Vaneeta.
Yeah, you're right, Professor Tanmoy. And I would add to it, like we have different kind of bullying or lobbying at workplaces. It may be by seniors, it may be by juniors, it may be by peers as well.
Yes,
so
yes.
what
It is not the unidirectional, it is maybe the multidirectional actually.
It may be multidirectional. And what one needs to handle, first of all, you're right that one needs to understand, is it a casual one of instance, or it is a continuous process that somebody is, is trying to bully you continuously, finding. And sometimes what we find that nicest of people are being bullied. And people, so it's not a fault with the person who is getting bullied or who is getting discomfort. So whenever you feel that some instance is giving you discomfort, so analyze that discomfort. Is it just one-off, or it is a continuous process? And there is a very thin line, as you correctly said, between bullying and harassment. So you need to find out, is it bullying, or that the person or a group of persons are becoming, overpowering over you, and they just want you to follow them, which is a kind of bullying. And there are different forms of bullying we will talk about, like they can be humiliating you in front of other colleagues, or and some form of bullying can be that despite you being best in your performance, you are ignored for some important project, and it is passed on over to some other peer. That is also a form of bullying if it is happening consistently. And bullying is mainly insecurity of the bullies. It
Yes.
has nothing to do with you, actually. So one needs to find out the reasons. Reasons do not lie with you. Reasons lie with the behavior of the bullies and the mindset of the bullies. And one thing is that you cannot change the mindset of bullies, but you need to handle it. So I'll come over to Shereen. Shereen, please enlighten us. What can be the forms of bullying or lobbying in office and in workplace, and how to counter those?
Yeah, I mean, just as you rightly pointed out, Dr. Vaneeta, it's so yeah. So I'm reflecting on Dr. Chakraborty's points as well. It really does. I mean, the individual plays a role, but organizations more and more need to step up and be very clear about what is not tolerable. So what you were mentioning, that these kind of behaviors really should not be tolerated. So any organization that is truly committed to doing world-class business or bringing that level of excellence in what they do needs to walk the talk in that sense. So I would say as individuals, it's very important, when you're joining an organization to actually, find out about their values, ask about their, corporate values. How do they handle these kind of instances? What are some of their diversity and inclusion initiatives? So I think that also puts organizations on the spot in terms of, from a job seeker perspective, but from talent and graduates, actually, this is something that's important to us, as behaviors and what we're looking for in terms of leading organizations. Now, the kinds of, let's say, workplace bullying, or it could, venture into harassment and so on. It goes into so many, and as you both rightly pointed out, it can be peer-to-peer level, it can be individual to a manager, it can be based on gender. So we find sometimes, women in the workplace get, discriminated, especially after, going on maternity leave, for example, or, being passed up for promotions. I mean, I spent a good chunk of my career in the oil and gas industry, which is a very male-dominated industry in general. So a lot of our female engineers and, operations technicians and so on, I mean, they would just not be even considered for opportunities just because the managers would assume that, well, you're a woman, and at some point you're going to want to maybe, be in a relationship, get married, have children, and they would just decide for you your career path. And, it wasn't until we started to educate managers in that sense of, this is not the way the world works. You cannot decide for someone based on your biases, based on your own self, limiting beliefs. And that's, so there's a lot of education that needs to go there. So gender, definitely, nationality, of course, backgrounds, people can be bullied based on, whether, I mean, we're seeing it now in the US in terms of the protests and the riots happening with the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, there's, racial, discrimination based just on, your dialect or how you pronounce things. So, it comes and as you really, rightfully mentioned as well, it has nothing to do with the person. It's all really stemming from that individual's own, biases, their own insecurities, their own limiting, view of the world. So they kind of look out at the world with that lens. So if the lens that they look at the world from says women shouldn't really be in leadership positions, then that's kind of how they will approach everything they do. So a lot of it is really subconscious, and it takes a lot of education for that. So, as individuals, it would be, just be aware of the behaviors of others, be aware of how, and to your point, is it a one-off or is it a pattern? If it's a recurring pattern, I always recommend people actually have always like a notebook handy. And, that's something, we, through my coaching as well with individuals, is just, keep track of, especially like when you're having one-to-one meetings with line managers or with team members. And it's not to document every single word someone says, but just to keep track of things, because these notes come in handy when, let's say, if there is a grievance or there's, if there has to be an investigation into a particular instance or something. So you've kind of kept track of, look, this is not just one-off. This has been happening in a recurring pattern. These were the times. It was always related to my project, you know, so there's always a, you know, we can look at themes and trends and patterns. So keeping track of that, you know, individually is really important. But also, you know, having, I would say, the courage to ourselves speak up and hold that boundary for ourselves is really important. So, and this is, I absolutely know it is not easy, especially when you're a newcomer to an organization, especially when you're early on in your career, you know, kind of finding that strength in yourself, you know, that self power to actually speak up, especially with authority. And I would say in our region, you know, whether it's the wider Middle East and within, you know, the Asian continent, you find, you know, it is a challenge to speak up and challenge, you know, your leaders and authority. So it's not necessarily very well received, you know, especially from, you know, a more younger person speaking up on that. But speaking our own truth and holding our own boundaries is really, really critical. I found personally for myself, I've had to say, you know, and be very clear about what I will and will not accept in terms of how I'm, you know, how people treat me or how I'm, you know, being behaved against at work, especially when it comes to, you know, balancing work life. I'm a single parent of 2 girls. I have home commitments. I have things I need to get done. You know, if people are judging me or perceiving me, you know, from any sorts of angles, you know, or that I'm not capable enough, or because I'm a mom, because, you know, there are things where I needed to be very clear with those individuals about, you know, when I will deliver my work, how I will do it. These are the conditions that I do well in and how I thrive at work. And I think ultimately, as individuals, we have to take our own responsibility in terms of, you know, if it is infringing on our mental health, and if it gets to a level of that it is really damaging, then there needs to be that decision where we actually, you know, remove ourselves from that situation.
True. As a woman, I totally synchronize with you, Shereen. I have also, you know, yes, faced all these situations when I got married, when I had kids, and yes, few people made some very discriminatory comments, and I stood up then and there and told them that this is not something I am accepting, and you know, that actually made them mum about it, saying to other women as well in future. So because somebody has to stand up and say that this is not something I'm accepting, you need to stand up. And you will find, you know, bullies generally bully the weak person. They find soft targets. They find ego booster in victimizing soft targets. So once you stand up for yourself that I'm not a soft target, don't come to me, they get a signal. You give a subtle signal that, look, man, I'm not the one. You can't bully me. So you see, some of the people get bullied and some of them just do not get bullied because their body language, their speaking with authority, their way of communication tells the bullies, man, this is not the person we can attack. So you need to create that kind of shield around you at the beginning, because once you succumb, they feel, how can this person rise up now? When once you have, you know, under their control once or twice, they feel now he cannot rise up. So their bulliness increases after that. So I will come over to Professor Tanmoy. Please share your views. What should be the steps when somebody faces that, yes, some sort of bullying is happening?
Yeah. So first thing is that I should mention that it is not very easy to take the bold decision against the person who is doing regularly the bullying. The problem is that, you know, that especially the country like us in India, and as Shereen mentioned, that the Middle East, especially in the Asian countries, where that takers for the jobs are more, and then the opportunity is less, and takers are more, then automatically the huge competition. So if you oppose that, if you say boldly anything against your boss or your manager, then you will face the music. Now, you have to decide what will be the last line limit when up to you can tolerate, and after that you will not bother to say this is not the right thing what you are doing, and I should not be the target for the further bullying. So that couple of times I mentioned that bullying is the thing which is actually occurred in the repeated way. It is not the single day occurrence. The person who is used to do that kind of the activity, bullying and lobbying, they generally prefer to do with the regular mode, continuous manner, and it is something which gives him or her that kind of the satisfaction. Yeah, I can do this one. I am a boss. I can do that kind of the behavior. It is allowed, and company is promoting for me this kind of activity. But thing is that it is a very challenging task for the employee to protest anything against the bullying. If I share with you the data, in the USA, that number almost particularly in India, because many people are regularly suffering that, but they do not have the courage that they are coming out with that the matter. That they are not saying that yes, we are the person, we are being regularly bullied in my organization. So first thing is that courage you have to bring in your own. Yes, this is the right time when I should say, please stop. And stop means stop. No means no. No further bullying, no further lobbying you will tolerate from your boss, from your peers, from your junior. No. First and second thing is that the very important point is that the documentation part, where we are actually the lacking behind, that we are not maintaining that the activities regularly. What we are thinking about that it is the bullying. As a result, when we are coming out with that this person is regularly bullying me, we could not produce that the document, because I mentioned that the bullying is the thing which is regularly happening. So you have to produce the data that when it has started and how the process, how the step by step you have gone through that kind of thing. So that documentation is very much important for the purpose of the, whenever you will think about that, you will go against that, your manager, your peers, whosoever is doing the bullying. Another issue is that the leaving of the job is not an issue, is not a easy thing I mentioned, but it is not also the solution. If you feel like that, the person who is, as Dr. Vaneeta mentioned a couple of times, that all people are not bullied regularly. Some of the persons are treated as the soft target. That means that person have some kind of the lacuna, some kind of the problems inherent in his or her behavior. So that kind of the things we have to work on, and how we can suppress and how we can convert that thing in our strongness. So if we do that one, if we can do, then definitely that will be the one of the important solutions for the workplace bullying. Otherwise, we will face regularly the problem, but after we cannot disclose, and it will affect our normal day-to-day life, even also our output in terms of the performance.
That is true. And as Shereen mentioned, always make a notebook. I always, on your mobile phones nowadays, there is a feature of notes. I always keep one document password protected, in which whenever I feel some discomfort, I note that event, time and date. And you have to also write down who was present and who said what. A proper documentation is needed for in case some legal steps need to be taken later on. It's very important. And when sometimes we forget after a point of time that something happened, but if something is recurring, that notebook or note diary can help you in connecting what happened last time and who was the witness. And second step, which I found in real time, like in my own experience, always have a bunch of your own friends, like-minded friends, whom you can trust, whom you can share. Because it is very important that if somebody is bullying you, trying to harass you at workplace, you should be able to share this incidents immediately with a bunch of friends. The bully should be exposed, so that in case something grievous happened in near future, that bully is already exposed among the peers, among the workplace, that yes, this guy was trying to, or the lady was trying to, it can be man or woman, both. So that this person was trying to bully or trying to, exploit this particular person by saying so, or by behaving so, or by commenting so. So that should be very, very clear. And one thing is also there, that relationships at workplace are very dynamic. You will find somebody along with you today, and tomorrow he or she is on the other side. So those relations are very dynamic. Be ready for that. Do not be sad that somebody was supporting you today and was not supporting you, in future. That is very, very dynamic. And other thing which I found useful is that you have to be up on your toes, always be in contact with your managers, with your HR, with all the key people. Because if you're active, if you're alert, then the other person has minimal chances of planning something like attack. If you say verbal attack or a planned attack, like it happens that people are not given due credits for what they performed, and somebody else is given credit. That is also a form of bullying. So what do you say, Shereen, about it? What are the other steps one can take? Not legal. Legal is an extreme step.
Yeah, of course. So, building allies, building a strong network within your workplace is very key. So, engaging different stakeholders, making sure your work is known, and you do that through building relationships. So the more you're able to build relationships on a more authentic and genuine level, where you're actually there to help, the different groups, or, whatever part of the work that you do, where people see, how you are actually adding value. So the more people actually get exposed to your performance from different angles, it's less likely that they will only take that one person's perspective, because then, you've built that solid relationship with a lot of people. Using, amplifying what you do. So sharing your accomplishments via email, and it's not to boost our, or toot our own horn, as they say, but I think we are very, even culturally, like, we don't like to speak about our achievements. We don't stand up for what we've done, but there is a way to bring that across in a way that's not in a boasty, show off way. You're not annoying people, but you're stating that, you were involved in this, you led this initiative, this is what we did. I just wanted to share this with you, with everyone, to share, the good news with you all. This is what we've accomplished. And in that sense, you're actually building those networks and those bridges with all those allies across the organization, so that should you face a situation where you've built enough credibility and you've built enough, a sound, a solid reputation, that people wouldn't necessarily assume that you're at fault. Then there'll be a sense of, okay, let's look into this, and why would this actually be happening? So I would say strong relationships in the workplace are key, and amplifying what you do. I think we wait sometimes for others to do that job for us. Oh, but my manager should know. They should know I do a good job. Don't assume anyone's going to sit and do that job for you. I think especially now, we're in a time where really we need to be our own spokespeople. We need to be our own biggest cheerleaders. We need to be the people that bring our value to the table every day. So just assuming that someone's going to kind of hold our hands step by step is not going to happen. So a lot more self-leadership is needed, a lot more self-directed, vision in terms of, who is my network? Who are those key people that I want to build strong relationships with? How can I get my voice to them? How can I share what I do, on a broader platform? getting involved in cross-organizational projects is a good thing too. So aside from kind of what you do only on a day-to-day basis, if there are opportunities for you to tap into cross projects or things that are happening on a broader scale, and that gets more people to get to know you and see you in action. So the more people that can see how you demonstrate your competence and your skill sets, the less likely it is that they'll only take one person's point of view on your performance.
Yeah.
So those
Professor
are kind of, just.
Yeah. True. Professor Chakraborty. So in
Yeah,
case somebody is feeling depressed, I will a little move from this on a further step, that if somebody is finding somebody is, yes, up against him or her, and there is a bunch of people, he has already influenced all others, and this guy feels that I am alone and trying to find out a way out. Despite having a bunch of friends, despite having a very nice family back at home, he feels or she feels that he is cornered. What are the ways that she or he can come out of this space? Because unless you are out of that vicious circle of thinking, you cannot think out of the box. So what are the steps one should take?
In that case, I always believe that the person, if he feels that the regularly
Tanmoy, you need to be little loud, please.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
Now
better.
is it?
Yes.
So if any person, if he or she regularly observe that he is being or she is being cornered in that, in his or her organization, then he should be bold. He should take the call that yes, right, it is the time to discuss with face to face to the person who is involved in that kind of the bullying activities. Because the major thing is that if you do not open up with your problem, then the person who is doing the bullying, he also think that it is his or her right. So thing is that he has to come out first, discuss, open forum, maybe impossible to one-to-one discussion, and if not possible to in presence of the HR person, you should talk with the person who is indulged in the bullying. And after that, if there is no process or no any relief, respite in terms of the bullying, then he or she has to go for the higher ups in the official complaint. I'm not saying about the legal perspective of that, because the legal perspective in case of the bullying, especially in a country like us, it is slightly, because if you know that one, you know that the workplace safety means generally we prefer for the sexual harassment and other things we generally prefer to discuss, but not the bullying. Bullying is not the thing which we are very much acquainted with that. So it is a lacuna from the institutional side also, because there is no kind of the alignment, no kind of the orientation for the leadership team also, and also the orientation of the employee, that what is the meaning of the workplace. So this time, if the person feels that he is being cornered, then first my point is that he should come up with the open discussion, but that should be in presence of HR person or the person who is in support of the person. Another issue is that if that actually does not work, then he or she should go for the higher ups in the official complaint. But that is why I mentioned number of times, the real documentation ultimately will work. Otherwise, he or she will face the same music, and nobody will be in the position to help him out. So first discussion, and finally there is the option if there is, they have to go for the legal. Otherwise, there is no such relief for that.
Shereen, your points. If somebody feels cornered, how he or she plan his life outside the office to come out of this, vicious circle and think afresh about the problem, or to take a break from the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the challenges is that when we're in the middle of, a turbulent situation at work, it just consumes our entire presence. Like it becomes just the entire focus of our existence. And And I think, you know, and we do make it very personal. So as just as human beings, you know, that's just, you know, human nature, that we assume, you know, someone, you know, did something, it has something to do with me, there's something wrong with me. So we take it very personally, we internalize it, we, you know, and that's where the spiral of like anxiety and depression and you know, the withdrawal, so people become very withdrawn, they don't, you know, interact and so on. And that's why, you know, initially when I was saying like a strong sense of self is really, really critical here. So, you know, having, I call them grounding practices that bring you back to the present moment. You know, anytime that your mind is spinning, anytime that you're, you know, catastrophizing, or you're taking on, you know, this situation is just like it's the end of the world, it's catastrophe, you know, and it may be in that moment, you know, a very intense situation, but being able to pull yourself out and being able to at least distance and detach yourself from that intensity, whether, even if you're in the office, whether quickly, you know, taking like a break for 3 minutes of like deep breathing, or just, you know, maybe just a quick, you know, there's loads of meditation apps now that are available. So that just creates like a short circuit for the storm that's going on inside your head. And it allows you to at least look with a sense of clarity and perspective at the situation. So, you know, I faced in the past situations where, you know, certain managers were, and these were female leaders, and at the time I assumed, but they're also female leaders, they're mothers themselves, and I was facing the most bullying from them, who I assumed that they would understand my situation, you know, and one of them in particular, like I remember we were having a feedback conversation, and it felt very harsh, and I felt very attacked at the time. And you know, in the moment, of course, it was very intense and very emotional. But I remember after stepping back, I could see that there was some valid points that were brought up that I needed to take responsibility for. And it was only when I detached was I able to see that with a level of humility and perspective. Because in the moment, you know, the defenses are up, like you feel like, no, you know, I'm being attacked. So there's, I would say, twofold here. So one is absolutely, to Dr. Tanmoy's point, you know, drawing those boundaries when enough is enough, I will not tolerate this. So knowing when to draw that line. But the other is also knowing when to, you know, retract from the situation and allow yourself to think and look at it from a fresh perspective, because there may be things there that you also need to work on. There may be things that you need to develop in yourself to be able to counteract that situation.
Yeah. So I think we should go, and I will add to that. You're right, Professor Tanmoy and Shereen, about, yes, this does happen. And I found that this has some medical, you know, reasons to it also. When you are going into a depression phase, because constant stress is there, you're thinking constantly about one problem, one person, and you are unable to come out of it. And you know why it happens? Because you are thinking that somewhere you have triggered that issue. So somewhere you are starting to blame yourself, and somewhere you start saying that maybe if I have not done this way, or if I have not said this way, he or she might not have been angered, or you know, started this behavior, and how to modify it. But again, to reinforce, the problem is not with you, the problem is with the other person limitation to handle the situations. That somebody can be more smart, somebody can be more intelligent, somebody can be more peaceful, somebody can be more focused at the work. One thing is to have a good laughter that boosts your adrenalines, and that boosts your adrenalines to a level that stress drops immediately. So one way is to have a good fun show. Watch a TV show in your spare time. YouTube is there. You can find good comedy shows to have your internal laugh, because you are constantly thinking about something in stress, so you are sad. Your adrenaline levels are low. Second is go for a run. If you can, go for 1 kilometer run, 2 kilometer run, 3 kilometer run. When you are exercising heavily, do a Zumba in front of laptop. You don't want to go out. And you know, it boosts up your adrenaline levels, and you will find that all of a sudden all that clouds of sadness have disappeared, that stress has gone. away. Dance on your own. While you're cooking or you are reading or just zigzag. And, go to hell. Just say 100 times, go to hell. I'm happy in my ways. So that will give you, again, a new mindset to think about the problem and how to shoo away that person. And it's not difficult. And if you find the setup is such that you can't help, then better to find out a change. But you are not going to let that person win over your willpower. One thing, make sure. Do not let, just a second, in that zigzag, my earphones have gone. Yeah. So do not let that person win over. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So do not let that person to win over your spirits, your willpower, your talent. You know how you have earned it. So it is your property. And your happiness is your property. Your life is your property. Don't give it up on a bunch of foolish people who can't take more smartness, more intelligence, more peacefulness, more focus. Right? So one thing is sure, your life is, so I feel very, very sad when some young professional or some young student out of stress, out of, depression, unable to cope up with the stress, it does happen sometimes, attempts to give up their lives. So my dear professionals, if somebody is going to that edge, think about your parents. At least they will be least happy about this. You are not going to make them happy about it. If you are having your kids, they will not be happy about it. If you are having siblings, they will not be happy about it. Whether they talk to you or they don't talk to you doesn't matter. Somewhere in your mind, even if we do not talk, some cases may be there when siblings bond over each other daily basis, or they are meeting on weekends, but in some cases they may be so apart that they are busy in their lives, but morally they feel that yes, somebody in some corner of the world is there who is mine own, right? So they feel very sad about if somebody is gone. And life is precious. Life comes one time. We do not know what we were. If we believe in past lives, we do not know what we were in that life. We won't know, and we don't know what we will be in their future lives. They are all hypothetical situations to just think about and fantasize about. This is our life. We are going to make best of it. If somebody doesn't like it, it's his or her problem. It's not my problem. And tension is to give. Tension is not to take. One thing. So somebody at some point of time told me, Vaneeta, tension is something to give, not to take. So be happy. And that, immediately make me happy. Yeah, this is correct. Why I'm so sad? Let us give tension to those people. So if they want to bully me, let me say, you can't. You can't do that to me. So you have to take that fighter spirit. You are not that poor that you can't earn two times meals. So it is there.